My name's Darryn George, and I'm a painter, and I'm a Christchurch-based painter. So I do, I've been born and raised here. Now I think the key thing for me is I've got two backgrounds that I'm interested in and kind of allowing to come into the work. Firstly, I am part Māori, and so I've been brought up within a European setting, but my dad is Ngāpuhi. So I've kind of got these traditions of Māori traditions that have been handed down to me. But the other thing is that I was brought up here in Christchurch, and I was brought up in a Christian family. And again, that's something that's very dear to my heart as well. So my work is basically about trying to tease those two ideas out consciously in the artwork. Now I have to say that when I was at art school, the last thing I wanted to make was contemporary Māori art. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it was actually in a meeting house. And what's more, I didn't really like the aesthetic of it. I could see all these kind of curvy forms all over the place, and I was making geometric art. I was making art that was very sharp-edged and things like that, with a ruler, and it was all very clean cut. But when I walked into it, and it was very minimal as well, but when I walked into a meeting house, there was just so much information in it, and I just couldn't relate to it. Now I went up to Whangarā, which is where they filmed The Whale Rider, and I was invited to go up there with a group of other contemporary Māori artists, and I still couldn't understand what was going on in the meeting house. I couldn't understand the look of the work and also the concepts behind it. But I was starting to become a bit more interested and a bit more intrigued, I guess, at this stage. Now, this older kamātua, this older gentleman, elder, said, "Darryn, I know that you're confused about a lot of things that are going on here. Let's just go for a walk down the beach." And so we went out for around about a 2-hour walk. And Hane Tamanu was the man, and he said, "Look, you've got something in you that is very special. You've got Māori blood." Now, one of the things that I've picked up from you as well is that you've got this Christian identity that you want to come through in your work and how you operate. So I want you to think about it like this. Your life, you're a Christian, and so your ideas and your belief system is built upon that foundation. But you've also got Māori blood running through you. And everything that you can see back in that meeting house is knowledge. It's ideas that have been passed on from generations. It's a language that's actually in the art. Now, because you've got Māori blood running through you, all that information, all that art and all those ideas, it's like a gift from your ancestors for you to use as a younger generation to tell your own story. Now I really like that idea, I like that kind of thought, because it gave me a bit more freedom to actually go back into the meeting house and to start to see things that I could pull into my own work as a gift from the ancestors. So I walked in and I saw this one design. It was the Stairway to Heaven design, which is basically like stepping, just basically steps. Now this Stairway to Heaven design is called the Potama design. Now it represents the steps that Tāne took into heaven, or another way of reading it is it represents the steps of an ancestor that's gone on before the tribe to go into heaven. Now, two things that struck me about that straight away is that number one, as I looked at it, the form of it was just like geometric abstraction. It was clean-edged, it was sharp, and it used rectangles and things like that to make the form. But secondly, the thing that I liked about it was the concept, or the spiritual connection as applied to that geometric abstraction. So for me, that brought together two rather big ideas. I want to make abstract art, and I also want to make art that was about my kind of Christian heritage, and that there started the whole idea off for making this type of work. Yeah, this is an artwork which I've just created called Pops, and it's around about 300 square metres in scale, so it's a big work. And basically it's an artwork or a painting that's painted directly onto the walls. Now one of the things about this is that when I was asked to do it, we started to think about how could we start to use every single element of the space within the gallery here. So I started to think about a meeting house. And a meeting house within Māori tradition is basically one great big artwork. It's an artwork that is filled with different patterns, different carvings, and those patterns and those carvings and each of those different artworks that are placed in that meeting house have significance, they have stories to tell. So one of the things that I want to try and do is to use that as the basic structure for this artwork here. So what we've done is we've set it up like a meeting house. So we've got the side panels here, which are almost like the big kind of vertical panels that go down a meeting house. And those panels have been repeated on the other side, so there's a repetition that's going on both sides of the house here. We've got a wall here which is very similar to the end wall in a meeting house. It's again covered with a lot of ideas and with different patterns and stuff. And in the centre of the artwork here we've got a great big post, which is very similar to the post that you find in the middle of a meeting house. Now, one of the things that also is important about this work in relation to a meeting house is that a meeting house, yes, there's stories that are told, there's knowledge that's passed on, but a meeting house is also a place where there's life and there's death, with the ancestors and things like that being up there, but it also points ahead to life after death. I remember as a young fellow being kind of, persuaded away from taking art because it was one of those things that you perhaps, you can't really make a lot of money off, or it's kind of like, it's almost like you're in dreamland. And I knew that I could do other things, but for me art was the thing that I enjoyed doing the best, or I enjoyed doing the most. Now I just want to encourage any of you that are younger and that love making art, just keep having a crack at it. And I think if you love making art, you'll always do well at it because you'll just keep being passionate about it. There'll be lots of failures and there'll be lots of things that you do wrong. But if you love it, you'll keep going back and you'll keep going back and you keep going back until you finally crack it. And I think that's the key to actually being good at this game. Don't think about the money. Like those things, if you want to in the future, those things will actually come about. But I think if you're a young person and you're studying at school and you're wondering what career path to take, and you're perhaps worried about art just doesn't seem to have too much in the future, I want to encourage you, just have a crack at it, and if you really love it, you'll make a career out of it, and you'll make options, or you'll open up options all over the place in the future if you love doing it.